Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Rose. I serve in the VCU School of Business Career Services office as the Associate Director for Career Education. As you can see, we're going to be talking about resume writing and going over an introduction to VMOCK, our resume critiquing software. Before we get going, I suggest you to go to Handshake and go to our Resources tab and download one of our templates just as a visual aid throughout the presentation. If this is something you're doing that's tied to a class, feel free to go to the Canvas page or the Blackboard page and download our template there. So I think it's first important to get on the same page about what resumes are and what we want them to be. Right? The overall purpose is that it's a one-page document that displays your experiences and your skills. And at the end of the day, it demonstrates how your experiences translate to skills that relate to any particular job, internship, or any other opportunity. What we're going to be talking about in a second on the next slide is relevant and transferable skills. So it's not just focusing on the job titles that relate or the companies that relate to what you want to do. It's really thinking about what have I done and what have I done within those experiences that relate to where I'm headed. And we'll talk more about that in a second. So we talk a lot about what should be on my resume, what shouldn't be, what are my sections going to look like, all that good stuff. And what's important to do is simplify this conversation as much as possible, right? All of us are going to have contact information, and all of us are going to have contact information be at the top of a resume. We suggest for you to center it because it's the easiest way for employers to see who they're looking at and be able to contact you when they want to follow up after looking at your resume. Then from there, you're likely going to have your education section right after that. As you move through your career, education will likely go to the bottom and you'll focus on putting your experience sections next. But for now, while in school, you'll have education that goes next. After that, most of you are going to have experience of some kind. So then the meat of your resume, the middle of your resume, is you listing and detailing experiences with bullet points. So some of you might have a work experience section where you list a few work experiences, and then you might have a leadership experience section where you detail a few involvement in leadership experiences, right? So then we're going to have that, like I said, the meat of our resume be work, volunteer experience, student orgs, leadership, academic projects, whatever we have in our background that's the most important and most relevant, those are the sections that we will provide. And then from there, we're going to list our skills. Now, for our information system students, you're likely going to list your skills section after your education section because your specific industry prefers to see your technical skills as soon as possible on the resume. But for the most of us, skills sections are going to wrap up our resume. Then from there are a few additional things to consider. We'll talk about relevant coursework in a little bit. We highly consider you to put that within your education section. Some of us have gotten a lot of honors and awards and scholarships. Can I include that? Of course you can. One thing that's important to realize is really make the resume work for you. Utilize the space well, right? Don't force sections that you don't need to have. And what I mean by that is if you have one or two honors and awards, and let's say that one or two are both related to education, put those honors and awards within the education section somewhere. You don't need to take up space having an entire unique section for one or two things. If you have 3, 4, 5 honors and awards, have it be its own section. Or put those honors and awards wherever you got those honors and awards within the education section, the fact that you're Employee of the Month at some specific company or job. Find a home for those to use the space the best you can. Trainings and certifications. So for some of you, you will have done a lot of training, maybe you have a lot of certifications, and that can be its own section. But again, be creative about the use of space. Have a skills and certification section where you're combining these two concepts that are very similar. But if you've done a lot, you can have it be its own section. And then we'll talk about this other relevant experience section that you can utilize to save space on your resume. So this is one of the most important things in this presentation. If you don't remember much about this presentation, this is the first thing I really want you to hear, is that what you'll see us talking about in the top left here is relevance. Oftentimes when people tell you, hey, resumes have to be relevant, or the things on them have to be relevant to what you're applying for, what you want to do, it immediately gets people discouraged, and especially college students, because you're sitting there and being like, I actually don't have a lot of specific experience where I have a job title, I've worked for a company that directly relates to what I want to do. Well, of course, because you're in college and you're not necessarily going to have that experience. So it's important to realize what relevant actually means. What relevant means is that you're thinking about skills that you have completed and things that you have done within your experiences that relate to your next steps and what you want to do. So what does that mean, right? At the top right, you'll hear and see transferable, right? What does that mean? It means think about what you do at your current or past position and think about how that could apply to maybe any work setting, or maybe the specific major or specific next steps you're trying to take. So for example, I work at CVS, and I talk to students all the time with part-time jobs that are, all in different, for different companies and different industries. And a lot of times they'll say, well, I don't really know what's relevant to what I want to do or communicate. I haven't really done anything that's important. And then we'll start talking, and maybe they're a human resources major, and so I ask, well, have you done any training? Well, yeah, I've trained like 15 people over my 2 or 3 years at CVS. Well, let's make sure that's on your resume. Have you helped with interviewing and hiring at all? Well, yeah, I actually went to a couple of job fairs and, helped hire the part-time staff. It's important to realize that you don't need to just be communicating duties, right? Your daily responsibilities. That's not what a resume is for. It's supposed to be a document that communicates your achievements and communicates the things that you've done within specific experiences that relate to the next steps you want to take. So again, I might have worked at CVS, and I'm a supply chain major, and I do weekly inventory or I do monthly inventory. It's not a part of my daily job, but I do it, right? I look at the purchase orders, I look at the invoices, I make sure that the products that have been delivered are correct. That's a skill that we need to make sure we communicate, really for anybody, but especially my supply chain majors. Again, I'm going to keep talking about this for a second. I'm an accounting major, and I work at that CVS, and I help reconcile the cash register. I help, at the end of the day, reconcile the safe and make sure the money coming in is the same as the money going out. I look at the receipts to make sure they add up. That's essentially auditing, right? That's essentially some auditing skills. So it's important to realize that think about what you do. It's not just about your duties. It's not just about, what does the job description for that, customer service representative position say. It's what are you doing that is kind of most related to your next steps. So we'll keep going here. It's also important to realize, which I use the word important because I now look at it here at the bottom left, and that's what we're talking about. It's important to realize that you can't stretch all of your experiences to technically be transferable, or skills or anything like that to be technically transferable to everything. But what you can realize is that some experiences are just really important, or they're impressive. So for example, I have a decent amount of students who have been volunteer EMTs or firefighters or whatever, and they're like, I'm an accounting major, you tell me to say transferable stuff, I don't do any reconciling, I don't do any of this, I don't handle any money in any way, like, what are you talking about? How do I make it transferable? Okay, well then think about the interpersonal side. Think about the fact that accounting, it's a pretty high pressure industry, and so you have to be able to perform under high pressure situations, and so those are things that you want to think about communicating as well. So it's also communicate important and impressive experiences, and then communicate whatever interpersonal skills that might translate, even if it might not be more technical and functional skills. And then at the end of the day, it's important to realize that resumes evolve. As you go through your college and your professional careers, you'll continue to replace old experience with newer experiences, so continue to update as needed. Some of you who are business foundation students, you're going to still have high school on your resume and those experiences on your resume, and that's totally fine. Typically, they start coming off of your resume, your first semester of your sophomore year, or the second semester of freshman year. It depends if you've added part-time jobs or involvement experiences fairly quickly in your college career. But at the end of the day, make sure that you are replacing older experiences with newer experiences especially if they're more relevant or important or impressive, right? So we have a few common resume types to realize that there's kind of buckets that a lot of students fit in. And so we'll start with education focused here with Hermione. So the kind of profile of this is, this student maybe hasn't worked a ton, whether it's part-time jobs or anything like that, or really been involved in many clubs. So to fill the resume, all of our education is listed. So I'm going to list, VCU. I'm going to list high school, especially if I'm, freshman, sophomore year. Maybe I've transferred, so I'm always going to keep my community college or other four-year institution on there because, again, I sort of need to fill the resume and also communicate what I pursued there as maybe a positive to our employers. I might include details from academic projects as experience, and then maybe I've volunteered a little bit. So sometimes we include positions and experiences to kind of fill the page, and also we utilize these experiences to strategically communicate skills. So someone could have most of their resume experience sections be academic projects, especially if they're an information systems student. And the reason why an information systems student would do that is because by your junior year, especially second semester junior year, you will have done 3, 4, 5 really hands-on practical projects that you're developing, real tangible skills. So a lot of my information systems students never have an internship, even though we definitely want to get one. A lot of my information systems students don't necessarily even have to have an internship to communicate real tangible skills, and so they have more of an education-focused resume where they're communicating their academic projects and then maybe one work experience and maybe one involvement experience. So you then might be, as we move to work-focused here, you might be someone who's had a good amount of part-time experience. You might have worked full-time, right? So your resume and your sections of your experience sections are going to be focused on your work. And so maybe it's experience that's tied to your future career. Maybe it's just a lot of part-time jobs that you've done that you've, really developed some skills in. And maybe you have some involvement as well and some leadership. But mainly your experience is focused in the work that you've done. And then from there, I work with a lot of students who primarily have their resume taken up by leadership experiences and involvement. So I might not have worked a lot, but I've held a lot of leadership positions and been involved in a lot of student organizations, volunteer experience, sports, whatever it is. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the skills I've built there and try and communicate transferable experiences through those positions and experiences. So I really like this slide, hopefully you do too, to just give an idea that resumes are kind of like snowflakes. They're all kind of the same idea, but they all look different, depending on what your background is and what your, needs are for what you're applying for. So this is where we start getting into, the nitty-gritty with what a resume is going to look like and kind of our expectations. Over the next 2 slides, you'll see this is an example education for someone who's declared their major. The next slide, I've listed example education for someone who is a business foundation student. So in general, this is what we want our example contact information to look like, our contact information to look like. You'll put your name at the top. That's the first rule of resume writing. The biggest thing on the page is your name. It's bolded. It's 16 to 20 point font. When it comes to your address, you don't need to list the full address anymore unless you're applying to some government-related role. The government still mails stuff and whatnot, but you typically can just put your city, your state, and your zip code. From there, you want to list your cell phone number and then your email address. We typically suggest for you to list your VCU email address because you want recruiters from the very top of your resume to realize that you are a college student. Then from there, if your LinkedIn page is something that is a quality page and it's ready to be shared with employers, you can put your LinkedIn link on there. Also, it's important to realize, go to your homepage on LinkedIn, go to your profile, and make sure you select Edit Public Profile and URL. Because naturally what LinkedIn populates for you is something that has like 6 or 7 numbers at the end, and you want to delete those and update your public profile and URL to be something that looks a bit more streamlined. From there, we have our education section. So this is for someone, again, who's declared their major already. You have VCU, you have Richmond. That's the same for both declared and Business Foundation students. But then this is where it's a little different. We list Bachelor of Science, and then since we've declared our major already, we put accounting. And then for everyone, we want our GPAs listed if you have a GPA that's above a 3.0. A lot of times people will hear different things about this. If it's 3.0 or higher, we list it. Most employers, if they have a GPA cutoff, it's going to be 3.0. Not even all employers. A lot of employers don't even ever have a GPA cutoff. But if they do have one, it's going to be 3.0. Always go to the hundredths place if you're going to list your GPA. 3.32 always just looks slightly better than 3.3. And then your end date of when you're going to graduate. You don't need to put anticipated. You don't need to put expected. A date in the future by its nature is anticipated and is expected. My apologies, not inspected. So it's important to not, use that clunky language or redundant language. Just put May 2021. If that changes, if it's updated, then you can go ahead and change that date. From there, this is just an example of someone who's maybe transferred from a community college or a four-year institution. Again, you'll list the school, you'll list the location, you'll list your degree, Associate of Science. You don't put BS, you don't put AS, right? List out the entire degree name, Associate of Science, Business Administration, and then our GPA, and then our end date, okay? So then with relevant coursework here, we really suggest you to go ahead and put relevant coursework. What relevant coursework will do is it'll just provide some more context as to how you've built some, knowledge base or understanding of, the thing you're studying or the industry or career you're pursuing. The thing I want to do now is get on the same page of how to actually list experiences, right? You have about 6 to 7 seconds to prove to a recruiter that your resume is worth their time reading. And one of the quickest ways to show that your resume is not worth their time reading is to be inconsistent, is to be hard to read, is to have stuff all over the place and not easily understood. So as you can see here, we have our organization, right, where we go to school, our location, right? So our organization is on the left side in bolded, our location is on the right side in bolded. Then we have our degree, and for your education or for your work experience section, your job title. We have our degree on the left side unbolded, and then we have the date on the right side unbolded. Again, same thing. John Tyler's listed the same exact way. So it's consistent, it's easy to read, right? And that's what we want out of our resume. On the next slide, you'll see as we talked about, this is an example Business Foundation student education listing. And so again, you'll see Virginia Commonwealth University, you'll see the location, you'll see Bachelor of Science. But for this time, we're putting Business Foundations and then putting in parentheses what your track is. There's not technically a Business Foundations Bachelor of Science, but also putting Bachelor of Science Accounting is also inaccurate too because you haven't declared your major. So you're kind of in this middle ground. One of the best ways to communicate where you're at in school is to just put Bachelor of Science, Business Foundations, and put parentheses what track you're pursuing. So Bachelor of Science, Business Foundations, parentheses, Supply Chain Management and Analytics track, right, if that's what your concentration is. And then May 2024. And then what we have here is we want to make sure that we understand that if you're a Business Foundation student, a lot of times what you're going to have is you're going to have your high school on there too. You don't necessarily have to have that on there, but you can have high school on there. It's probably only going to be there for your first year in college, maybe stick around until your sophomore year, especially if you went to a governor's school or if you went to, let's say, a college prep school. But for the most part, for a lot of us, high school is going to, come off our resume pretty quickly. One thing that I messed up here and forgot to note, if you've been to a 4-year institution or a community college and you did not actually attain your degree, instead of putting Associate of Science, make sure you put completed coursework in business administration. Putting the degree like you attained it isn't necessarily accurate, so make sure you put completed coursework in business administration, and then instead of having just an end date of when you attained it, put like August 2017 to May 2018, whenever you were there. So again, if it's a 4-year institution or community college where you didn't actually complete the degree, put completed coursework in business administration. Again, you don't have to put all your education in here. It's all about how much space you have. Do you have the space to list your associate degree? Do you have the space to list the institution and degree you pursued before you transferred? It's all about the space you have and what is important on your resume. So we'll keep going here. All right, so this slide is an example for career-specific experience. So this person is an accounting student, and so this is how you might handle listing some career-specific experience. So again, you'll see the consistency of this is our organization, left and bolded. This is our location, right and bolded. This is our title, left, unbolded. This is our dates here. Month and year is our start, and then we are presently doing it, so it just says to present. So always put your month and year, and then if I was not working here anymore, I'd say, let's say January 2019 to August 2020. So you want to make sure you have an end date if you're not working anymore. If you have an internship, it's important to give yourself a title. Just don't put intern. Actually give yourself a title that relates to what you're doing. This student is actually on the audit team, so if they wanted, they could put audit intern. We just put accounting intern for this right now, though. So a couple of things that's important to realize is that within your sections, so this is an accounting experience section, so likely this person is going to have a second position, whether it's the Volunteer Income Tax Association, where they volunteered to help with low-income folks' taxes, or any other accounting-related experience. If you have an experience section listed, any of them, likely there's going to be two for each, two positions for each one. So this person could have an accounting experience section where there's this experience and another in it, and then maybe they have an involvement experience section or a leadership experience section where there's 2 experiences or more in it. But the bottom line is, within your experience sections, you want the most recent to be at the top of the sections. So if you're presently doing it, it's likely going to be at the top. If you're presently doing another job, it's just you want the one you started earlier to be at the top. So we're essentially listing everything in reverse chronological order. From there, what we want to talk about now is what we're going to talk about is how to write, solid and effective bullet points. What you'll see down here is it all starts with an action verb. So audit, complete, analyze. Right? We always start every bullet point with an action verb. The important thing to realize is, since I'm presently in this job, I have present tense action verbs, but if I was not working there anymore, I would put audited, completed, analyzed, right? I would have it be past tense. So one thing I want to get on the same page about is we talked a couple slides about transferable skills, okay? And it's important as you're writing your bullet points to think about the fact that I am communicating a skill and an accomplishment. Something that I actually did and accomplished. I'm not just communicating a job duty. So for example, why this has no next to it is because audit academic departments. Okay, cool, but you're just communicating essentially the duty that you're completing. You're not giving me any context as to scope, as to skill, as to what was involved. So instead of just audit academic departments, we say complete audit of 3 academic departments with combined $100 million budget to ensure expenses align with state regulations. So instead of just baseline saying this is kind of the duty I was fulfilling, it's saying this is what I did, This is how many departments, this is how much money it was involved, the scope of it, and this is why I did it, to make sure that everything aligned with state regulations. I actually provided some context. Then for this, we have analyze, examine, and interpret account records, compile financial information, and reconcile reports and financial data. So this is a bullet point that is definitely good in quality to have. It's kind of a listing of skills and listing of responsibilities. A lot of times you might be, especially with an internship experience, you might be pushing, 5, 6, 7 bullet points. The most we ever want to have from a highly relevant experience is 8. So you might just have to list a bunch of skills and accomplishments all in one bullet point. But for most of us, this bullet point would become multiple, and we would get more specific with each kind of piece and skill here. But for this one, we just wanted to provide it as an example of, hey, sometimes you're going to have to, clump skills and accomplishments together to save space. The next thing here is we want to talk about our skills section. It's important to realize we don't want our skills section to be, a lot of times people have skills where they just list it vertically and it takes up 10 lines. We want to think about skills as the overarching heading and then providing the recruiter or the HR person with subheadings that are easy to read and easy to understand. So for this student, we have technical, general accounting, and just general. So technical meaning software and computer-related items that relate to what they're doing or what they're studying, or even if it doesn't relate, we could list some other technical skills on here too. But QuickBooks, Oracle, SAP, Microsoft Excel, those are the main technical skills that I have that relate to accounting. From here, we're just listing general accounting skills. A lot of times these are skills that are not inherently computer-based. They're just skills that I've learned either through the classroom or working. So cash flow analysis, pivot tables. This could also say purchase orders. It could also say, auditing. It could say, reconciling receipts. Whatever it is, you can list more general accounting skills on here too. And then general skills, employee training, inventory management, customer service. These are some other skills that maybe this person discussed in other parts of their resume too. So as we talk about another example experience, this is a really important time to realize that even if you don't have a specific job title or specific work for an industry or organization that is within what you're majoring or what you want your next step to be, we can still write really quality bullet points that are impressive. So this is an example of that. So one thing before we start talking about the bullet points for this example of general experience is I'm showing you a different way to list your experiences. Some of us don't have the space to list everything using 2 lines. So the way that you list this experience is taking up 2 lines, right? The organization, the date, my title, the organization, the location, my title, and the date. Some of us don't have the space to take up 2 lines with each thing that we're listing. So it's okay to use these vertical lines. It's still easy to read. It still navigates someone through your resume, but we have bolded here on the left, we have our organization, then we have our title, then we have our date, then we have our location, and then we have our dates. So it's just another way to list experiences with taking up less space. So as we talk through this, again, no to just saying worked lunch and dinner shifts and took orders. Yes to thinking more critically, communicating scope and more complexities of what I accomplished. Manage a 5 to 7 table section, interacting with various large parties in order to build return business and regulars, right? I'm providing understanding of what I accomplished and that I understand the idea even about building business and regulars. I showed that I actually managed a pretty big section and interacted with a lot of folks, right? I'm communicating the scope of what I did there, not just the duties. I received and entered orders accurately to the Upserve point of sale system, right? Instead of just saying take orders, I'm communicating that I had to receive information and then enter it accurately into an actual database or software system, right? This point of sale system. So I'm communicating that just in a slightly elevated way. I can talk about collaborating with a number of group members to be able to actually complete tasks, right? Another skill that's really helpful. And then, as we talked about earlier, the transferable piece, is that I complete weekly inventory checks with my manager, reconciling purchase order with actual products delivered, right? So I'm reconciling that purchase order materials with what was actually delivered. And again, these are not things that you're necessarily, especially this inventory check, it's not something you're doing every single day in this part-time experience, but it's a slightly elevated and slightly more relevant skill or accomplishment that you're communicating on your resume. Again, we're thinking about writing bullet points, we're thinking about action verb, we're thinking about the skill we've demonstrated, and then, the task completed and the positive outcome. And again, with the technical piece, Excel, beginner Java, and social media, this person's done some of that. This is the second thing, that if you don't remember anything else from this presentation, remember this. You do not have to have bullet points for everything that you list. You should not have bullet points for everything that you list on your resume. Most of us have experience that we don't necessarily know how it's going to fit to one page. And this is one of the best ways you have a one-page resume. It's that you actually have experience sections in which you're listing bullet points focused on the things that are either the most relevant or the most impressive. And you leave the other things to this other relevant experience section. So if I've just sort of been a general member or volunteer, or maybe I've had a part-time job, that I'm not going to communicate likely any value that's any different than the bullet points I've already communicated, this other relevant experience section is super useful. I'm still showing someone, this is the organization, this is my title, these are the dates, organization, title, dates, right? I'm still communicating almost as like a cherry on top for the recruiters or the HR folks, other things that I've done, whether it's volunteer, membership, or work. But I'm sort of saying here, like, I just want you to see that I did these things, but you don't necessarily need any more bullet points than what's above, right? So it's important to realize that there's a big reason why a lot of resumes are one page, and most resumes should be one page. It's because just focus on what's most important, most impressive, and most relevant. And the other things can be housed, again, almost like a cherry on top in a section like this. I've worked with people with 20, 30 years of work experience that have had 3-4 pages for a resume, and they're not getting calls, and they're wondering why. And the big thing is you're not focusing on what's most relevant, most important, what's most impressive, right? This other relevant experience section has helped me make people with 30 years of work experience help me make their resume one page. So definitely consider utilizing it. Again, other categories that you could include: academic projects, leadership roles, volunteering as its own section. One thing with the volunteering piece is we don't want a volunteering section where you're just kind of listing experiences that you've done, once or twice. That can go in like an other relevant experience section. A volunteer experience section is typically built to house, things that you've done multiple times. So maybe it's something you've done for a few years, like Habitat for Humanity. If you've done Habitat or something else for a few years, you could have your own volunteer section, but it's not really meant to say, I did Relay for Life once, Community involvement, certifications, honors and awards, scholarships, memberships, languages. For the languages piece, that can go under your skills section as a subheading. So if you have a few languages that you're proficient in, whether it's beginner, intermediate, or advanced, your languages could go as a subcategory in your skills section. So one thing I want to do as we kind of get to the last few slides of this presentation is talk about, getting on the same page about small little formatting things. Again, like 90% of the time, your resume should be one page. Exceptions are very rare. And if you have questions about that, don't hesitate to reach out to us, because we have looked a couple people a year, not many. We look at it and we say, yeah, let's fill up a second page. You have a ton of really good stuff. That's totally fine. Let's go 2 pages. But again, it's quite rare. The next thing here is format. 11-point font minimum. We don't necessarily want to go any lower than that because it just looks like a big blob of text, and that's not what we want. 0.5 to 1 inch margins. Again, I've worked with people who have 2-page resumes or a page and a half, and they're like, I don't know how to get it to 1 page, but then their font is 12 and their margins are 1 inch or higher, and then we switch it to point 0.5, we switch the font to 11, and now they have a one-page resume. We don't want to go too wild with fonts. Just stick to Times New Roman, Calibri, and Cambria. And then really what we'll talk about right now is skip on any photos or funky colors, okay? We really, really, really believe in our resume templates and its format. We really encourage you to use our format and just substitute your information into it. A lot of times we'll work with students and they're like, oh, it's kind of plain, it's straightforward, it's just black and white, is it going to stand out? What stands out is how good your formatting is. What stands out is how you've written your bullet points, okay? It's not having a funky or crazy resume. That's just not what's important. Because a lot of times people with these kind of, random and colorful whatever resumes, it's really formatted very difficult, and recruiters and HR folks who are reading resumes all day, every day have a really tough time reading it. So we want a very straightforward, easy to read resume. And the example we give on this is we've helped many, many students get into the Brand Center. If you know anything about the Brand Center, it's here at VCU, and it's literally the #1 advertising program, master's program in the country, right? It's some of the most creative, most talented people who go work in New York and Chicago and LA doing these really, really creative things. And every single student that we have helped get in to that program used our format. The very straightforward, very easy to read, very easy to navigate, not super, funky looking or creative looking resume. But the reason why people like it, and they use it after they graduate, but the reason why people like it is because it's so easy to read and it's very consistent and it's easily digestible. So I will get off the soapbox there, but it's important to realize that's a huge thing. As we move to content up at the top right, just a quick note on this. We don't rewrite every one of our resumes for every job, okay? We don't need to do that. But what's important to realize is we definitely want to, read through the job descriptions or internship descriptions or whatever we're applying to, and make sure that we understand, the 3 to 5 most important job qualifications in order to update a few of our bullet points. One, because there's something called applicant tracking systems that automatically review your resume to make sure that you have some of the keywords from the job description. But two, at the end of the day, what's going to help people who are actually reading it once they get your resume, it's going to help them see those keywords from the job description on your resume a few times. So if you've worked that CVS job like we talked about, and you're applying to some jobs, and you see things about purchase orders, and you see things about reconciling this and that, and you see things about inventory, but you haven't put that on your resume, just go back to your bullet points and, write a new bullet point or update a bullet point where you could put a bit more content to in order to, put those keywords in there and get those skills in there. So it only takes about 10 minutes or so per job, and make sure as you're saving your resume, save it as a PDF, and then title it for the job. So Brian Rose, Kiter resume. So title your specific resume for each job. Have that Word document, right, that rarely changes that much, but as you are making new resumes, save that PDF and send it off and title it, Brian Rose, blank job or blank internship, using the company title. And then from there, resumes are subjective, right? Everyone will have a different opinion. Different employers and industries want different things. We very much tell students and alumni not to use objectives. Objectives are sort of more old school these days, but you might hear from some employers that you want to use an objective and they want an objective. It is more rare, but they might request it. So just roll with it, No reason to get frustrated, no reason to say, I've never heard that before. It's okay to say, yeah, for your company, I'll provide an objective, or, I'll do that, or, I'll utilize this strategy. But, hopefully you've gotten from us what's mainly expected, and so you can really just rely on that as your main understanding of resumes. And we can always answer any questions that you have. So what matters the most, as we've talked about, a document that is clean, is consistent, and is relevant, mainly off of how you've written your bullet points, and also if you've made sure you've focused on whatever most relevant and impressive experiences that you have. The last thing that we're going to be talking about here, another minute or two, is navigating VMOCK. So VMOCK is what is it? It's a resume critiquing software. It analyzes content, format, and competencies. Competencies like communication, teamwork, all that good stuff. It provides feedback for corrections to be made, and we'll talk about utilizing the feedback down at the bottom right here. How you access it is you go to the BCS Business Career Services homepage and click the For Students tab, and then you'll see VMOCK listed there as a resource, and you want to click on that. Again, a very important thing to remember about accessing VMOCK is you already have access to it. You just need to make sure that you click the option when it sends you to the place to log in, that you click continue with your university ID, because that way you'll just be able to type in your VCU ID and password and you'll be in the system no problem. So you log in with your VCU credentials when you click continue with university ID. Bottom left here, before you submit, we highly suggest you to click download templates once you're in the system and use one of our templates. Utilize the formatting provided to you. Whether you've accessed our template on Handshake or on your class's Canvas or Blackboard page, or whether you're accessing our templates through the VMOCK system when you log in, use the formatting. It will not only help you attain a higher score, but also, again, it provides a format that employers, truly prefer. Thanks for sticking with me. We're almost done. The bottom right here is using the feedback. Again, this is another thing. If you don't remember anything else from this presentation, remember this when using VMOCK. A 70% plus is considered an employer-ready resume. I know that's somewhat counterintuitive, but the system is so critical and is trained to very much pick up on every little thing that a 70% plus is considered an employer-ready resume. You get 10 submissions per year, and again, this is the important thing. Review the feedback and correct the issues. I work with a lot of students who quickly update the VMOCK and they see their score and then they are like, why did I get this score? I don't understand. I'm submitting 3 or 4 times and I'm not getting a different score. Well, it's important to realize that, again, it analyzes, right? It analyzes your resume based off of content, format, and competencies. And under each different main heading that it analyzes, there's little subheadings that you click through for your feedback. And that'll make more sense when you watch this tutorial video. There's about a 10-minute video that walks you through how to look at the feedback and actually utilize it. So it's important to realize that, just be a little proactive in this and make sure you're clicking through all the feedback, because the system literally, as you click through it, it highlights green for meeting the expectation of that category or subcategory. It highlights on your resume in orange for things that you should fix, but it's not taking points off. And then it highlights in red what is keeping you from getting points. So if you fix mainly the red things highlighted in red, you're going to get a better score. You just have to click through the feedback. You can't just look at the first screen. You have to click through individually the feedback to get a better score. So if you're properly using the feedback, it should take only 3 or 4 submissions maximum. So we've had 400 plus students already use VMOCK, and at maximum it takes about 3 to 4 on average submissions, and that's even with outliers, people who just kept submitting, not really utilizing the feedback. But for the most part, 3 to 4 submissions at maximum to get that 70 plus. All right, I'll jump off that soapbox too. And make sure you watch this quick tutorial video. It's 10 minutes. I promise I've talked a lot today, but I've talked much less in that 10-minute video. So the last thing here that we want you to remember, if you don't remember anything else, is that, we in VCU Business Career Services, we care about you. We just want you to be successful. We want to help you achieve what you want to achieve in your career. And so a resume is a really, really great place to start. We are very much available for virtual appointments, Zoom and phone, very much available. So please do consider scheduling an appointment with us to talk about resume or anything other than resume that's career related. And we also help with grad school planning and grad school searching and applications. Our appointments, we facilitate them between 9 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Feel free to call us. Feel free to email us with any questions. We want to help answer any of your questions regarding VMOCK or any snags you're hitting. That's what we're here for. And then also anything career or grad school related, we're here to help with. So again, we care about you. We want you to be successful. And thanks for watching today.